Right, let's talk about paint. So, still life's behind me. I didn't get it done last night. Started to play a game of Risk with the children and their granny went on all night, so didn't do that. I'm going to get it done today because the flowers are wilting. Need to get done, but I have also photographed the composition so that even if it's needing touched up, I have that image, so handy tip. Paint. My normal palette, I use a lot of different colours. I do use pre-mixed colours. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people are a little more purist than that, and that is absolutely fine. But this will be the general mix that I use. Now, my advice is, if you're going to paint and you're going to spend money on paint, buy yourself a good palette to put it on, okay? I use a wooden palette. I prefer that. Plastic palettes, everything dries really quickly on them. Wood, it's much better. Give it a wee spritz of water, spray your paint on, and buy yourself a box big enough that you can put it in. So if I haven't got my painting finished, what I do, I give my acrylic a wee light spray. Now we're not wanting to turn it into a wash. Wee light spray, put it into a sealed box, and you can close it up and leave it for later. Right, now paints, all different qualities as well. If you're wanting to paint with acrylic and you're wanting it to be textural, you're wanting it to have that lift and to see the movement of the paint with the brush and the palette knife, you're going to have to invest in a good quality paint because it's all about the body. I use, when I am painting my works for sale, I use a Liquitex paint. It's this one. Now, it is very heavy. So you can see when you squeeze it out, okay? Look how far I could squeeze it out before it will start to goop over the end, okay? It's really heavy. It's like real butter. Do you know that sort of consistency that when you move it, you can see your trail lines of your brush or your palette knife through it. It's expensive, but it is worth the money if you are selling your work. If you're just starting, perhaps this is not the paint to use straight away, but it is lovely to use, and it has a natural shine of the paint. The cheaper your paint gets, the more matte it will be, and you will have to depend on a varnish at the end. I could paint in Liquitex and not varnish. Now I varnish to protect it, but you wouldn't know it's not varnished because it has a lovely shine off the paint afterwards. I'd also use this one. So it's the Winsor & Newton professional one as well. And likewise, nice and heavy. Not quite as thick, but still a lovely paint with nice vibrant colours. So the pigment quality is different in these paints as well. So professional painting, spend the money on it. To be honest, if you're charging large amounts for your work, then really you should be painting in good quality paint so that your buyer is getting something that's quality and not something that's out of Poundland, in my opinion, of course. Liquitex also do a basics range, which is very good too. White is the colour that I would use most of because I mix in with it on my canvas. This is a really good one, but these are the ones, if you buy my work, this is the paint that is painted with. Now, I also am of the opinion that when you're teaching, that those who are coming to your classes should be receiving the full works as well. Maybe not using the really expensive paint, but still a paint that shows them properly the technique that you're trying to teach. So a really cheap paint will be really watery. It will fall flat, and when you go to move your palette knife through it, but you know what, you're just going to like skim on and off your canvas and you're going to be scraping through to your base layer continually, but you're going to find it really very hard to get that sort of textural bulky feel. You know that one where you walk into a room, see a paint and you really want to touch it? That effect will be really hard to get with a really cheap paint. And unfortunately, it's not art teachers' fault, but schools paint is pretty rubbish. And just saying, the Education Authority really should invest a wee bit more in the art room so that we are teaching our children properly and giving them the full experience in school. If I am in schools or I am teaching, I use this paint. So it's not a professional paint, but it's still graduate quality. You get a student quality and you get a graduate quality. And this is still a lovely paint where I can still get a lot of texture and lift with it, and it still has a really bold, vibrant colour. And when it dries, yes, it mightn't have the shine of the others, but it still is a really nice quality paint. Now, is that enough rambling about paint yet? Is it? 'Cause I could talk all day about this. Now, because I'm in school, and quite often schools don't have, unfortunately, a huge range of paints, I tend to teach my lessons there with a limited palette. So if you watch some of my other videos in oil pastels, you will see that I've used maybe only 4 colours. In school, I will use a limited palette. I will use the primary colours, which are red, yellow and blue. I will also add black and white to that. Not a massive fan of black because sometimes if left to your own devices, people will start to outline things in black or assume that shadows are black rather than really pulling out the complementary colours. So I tend to squeeze black on at the very last minute rather than give it at the very start. But it is very useful in mixing in with the other colours to give different tones and mixing varying hues. So yes, 3 primaries and black and white, and then we will mix the 3 secondaries from that. So if we mix yellow and red, we will get the orange. If we mix yellow and blue, we will get green. And if we mix the blue and the red, we will get purple. And if we mix them all together, we will get brown. Okay, so good way when I am teaching a little bit of colour theory too, because we can buy everything pre-mixed, which is fine, but it's good to know how to mix the secondaries ourselves and how to mix as we go along. I find that that's one of the main frustrations in any of my classes, that people can't get the colour mixed, and it becomes really stressful. Just think of it as play. You're just playing about with colour. Do you know, for an artist who has been painting, well, let's say they start in school, but they've continued on with a professional career in painting, it becomes as natural as driving, writing your name, you know, putting on the kettle, the things that you don't think about because you know how to do them. The more you mix, the easier it gets, where I really don't think about it all that much. When sometimes somebody asks me how to mix something, I have to hook in my brain for that piece of information because it's become very natural to me. But take your time, no stress. It becomes easier the more that we do it, right? So I've lost my palette here. Again, I have invested in a small box when I am using a smaller palette. As I said, I prefer to use a wooden palette. They're my favourite. You can buy the wee disposable ones and they're absolutely fine too. But I find that if you are not using all of your paint on one day or even in the 1 week, they keep much better if they are in wood and stored in an airtight box. Also, these wee ones have a nice hole in them, which I do like to hold when I'm painting. So limited palette there. We have the blue, we have the yellow, and we have the red. And really in just their standard form, they're cadmium red, yellow and blue hue, which is probably what you get in most schools. Now, I do like to mix. Algerian crimson is my favourite red to use, and Prussian blue is my favourite blue. But when I am teaching in a school, this is where I go, right? I'm going to get at it. So you can see behind me, I have the 2 pages. I'm going to do a brush one, first of all. Everybody thinks, oh, palette knife must be so much easier because you're just slapping paint on, you're moving in about. Well, no, it's actually not. In my opinion, of course, there will be people who think otherwise. I think it is harder because you're struggling with it. it is not just about what you're doing with that nice slapping it about. You have to really think about pressure. When you really push in to your canvas or your page with a knife, you're scratching back to your base canvas or paper, whatever it is. If you're using very little pressure, you're able to get that thick layering of paint that gives you that texture on top. And then because that's thick and it's wet, the next color you're going to put on is going to mix in amongst that. So you have to also constantly be thinking about color theory, because if I have got a secondary color like green and then I decide to put a red beside that, think, oh, that red would be really nice beside that. Well, yes, it would, because those are complementary colors, but because your paint is wet, the red with the green will mix in and you will get, you're right, brown, okay? It's just harder. There's a wee bit of struggle. So it is a good thing to start off with a nice loose brush piece to free you up, and also to give you an idea of where your colors are all sitting so that you can map out effectively when you go to use your palette knife. Then when we do use our palette knife, now I had a workshop there last week and I used a rubber glove, and those might have thought my head was cut giving it to them, but it was to teach you how to use pressure, because we need to figure that out before I put a tool into your hand. So with your finger, if you push in, you see the mark. If you lean off, you see how you leave the residue of the paint behind. And then when you put the tool of the palette knife in your hand, that becomes so much easier. And again, it is all about practice, okay? But what we're not thinking about here is a huge amount of detail. We are abstracting our pieces a little bit. So we will have a semi-abstract flower composition by the very end. Are we ready to go? Yes. Okay. Again, working in natural light today. Had to check. No lights on. Definitely just working with natural light. So it's casting a nice shadow of a dog here as well. So she's just, postman's just coming up the road. Okay, let's get ready to paint. Brushes. Choosing your brushes to paint. Now, with acrylic paint, don't do as I've done. I've just lifted brushes there and they're all crusty. Acrylic paint's plastic. You need to wash your brushes really, really well. With oil paint, you can wash them with a soap. But with acrylic, just make sure you're getting them in water. Otherwise, they're ruined. You might as well just throw them out. And they're expensive, so waste them. Choosing your brushes. Now, if I was painting a piece this size, normally I would go for brushes like this or even bigger. I have some 2, 3, 4 inch brushes and I would go at. But because of the group that I am demonstrating this to in school, thinking about resources, these are probably the type of brushes that they will have. There might be a few bigger ones. Okay, so look at the difference in shape. So this one is a slightly rounded head on it. This one, regular shaped paintbrush, as are these, just in the smaller form. So that's the finest one, smallest one for details. And then I really like a square head brush. So those are the ones that I am going to work with. Now, first thing I'm going to do is, now this is not something that you have to do, but I prefer it. Leaves it a wee bit freer, allows your paint to move without you having to manipulate it too much, because acrylic is quite a dry paint. So if you put it on with no water to start with, if your brush isn't wet, you're trailing it down, and because it is that size of a page, that's going to take a wild amount of paint to cover. So thinking just generally about the background, I will spray the page lightly because it's paper. If you don't have it taped down, it will ripple and it will warp, and if you ever try to go and frame that, the framer will tell you to get out. Okay, so it's a nightmare. Make sure your paper is stretched and taped down securely, and then spray it very lightly. Now I use just a wee hairdressing sprayer, okay, with a really light mist, okay, maybe 3 or 4 from top to bottom, then put my paint on after that, okay. Before we start, we're going to mix our secondary colours up, okay? So making sure, I'll say this once and I'll probably say it 1,000 times throughout painting, wash your brush. Don't put your brush from one colour into another colour. Yes, I probably do it now where you're able to lift from underneath, but at the start, make sure you wash your brush, because if you put a dirty brush into another colour, it's not pure anymore, and the colour that you're making becomes tainted and more than likely brown at some stage. So let's do this together. Okay, so I have laid my paints out here. You can see very clearly I like to keep the white always up in the top corner and the black. Now this splurted out, I did not mean to put as much black out as this, so I would normally keep it well over here. Blue, yellow and red. Now what I will do first of all is I will lift some of the blue from underneath and set it down. Gonna make sure you wash your brush. Keep a little bit of kitchen roll close to hand. Dry it off, and I'm going to lift some yellow and mix it in. Okay, there's a lot of water in my brush, so it's moving about. Okay, but I have made a green there. Probably do with a wee bit more yellow in that. I have made a green. Now, what I would do then is take a little bit of that, set it over here. And I would add some more yellow into it. To make a lighter green. There we go. Wash your brush. Now, with the yellow, I'm going to lift some of the yellow and set it here. And what I'm going to take then is the red, so you will know that's yellow and the red will make an orange. The more red, the darker the orange. The more yellow, the lighter the orange. Then lift a little bit of this. If you have a nice clean palette, you will see this probably a whole lot clearer. Now add some more yellow into that to give me a lighter tone. With the red, I'm going to lift the red here. And the one secondary I'm missing then is purple. So to the red, I'm going to add some blue. A bit more blue to that, make it slightly darker. Now if I was to add black, a small amount of black to any of these, it will dull them down and make them darker again too, but for now I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make a lighter purple. Wash your brush, don't just swirl it about. Rub it on the bottom of your jam jar, your water pot, whatever you're using. Okay, now the other colours that we might need, we mix up now. Gonna put some red here. With some white, that will give me pink. all that colour. I might need one to put blue. Red. And yellow, which will give you, here you say it, brown. Now, brown you have to fiddle about with. So that's much too blue. It's like a very, very dark purple. So what I need is more yellow. Just keep adding more of the colours, not loads at a time, but just to find the colour that you want. Put those 3 primaries together will give you brown. I'm just not there yet. Okay, getting there now. Okay, and there we have green, orange, purple, pink, brown, black, white, blue, yellow and red.